Assalamualaikum. My name is Afan. I like this workbook because it's fun and colorful. I can learn more about Allah and the Prophets. We get to learn about the Holy Quran, and
it has facts of the history of Islam.
It has lots of information and lots of fun games. It has very good illustrations.
The workbook that you see today was made in 3 different phases, and every phase had its own process. In the very first phase, we wanted to make sure that we cover all the critical elements for being a Muslim. We also wanted to make sure we had stories that related to truth or greed, and those stories were so impactful in our lives. We wanted to make sure we covered those stories. We also included tarbiyah topics that are practical to these days. For example, bullying is a topic that is being discussed in schools. We wanted to give an Islamic perspective to that. We also talked about cyberbullying, which we didn't think was covered in all other areas. So essentially, we brought quite a few elements that we thought were critical for the upbringing or the moral training of our children. The key element in phase 2 was, by this time, we had approval of our syllabus by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Abdullah bin Nasr Aziz. Now that we had an approved syllabus, we also had approved levels within our academy. We had 6 different levels approved, and we also had different categories defined, like basics of Islam or history of Islam. 4 different topics that we had, we wanted to cover them appropriately for each level. In this workbook, phase 2, we created 6 different workbooks. Now they were more extensive this time. We wanted to make sure that in this case we put most of the elements that kids are using. They don't have to go to another book. In this case, they could just use one workbook and they could collect all the key elements of memorization or basics of learning of Quran. One of the key objectives was, this time this book is going to be printed for kids to actually write on. So we wanted to make sure that this book has coloring pages, it has multiple exercises. While we were doing this, we also wanted to make sure that this book covers every other book that we talk about or reference in our phase 1 or phase 2. For example, we took My God book, which was previously referenced. This time we summarized it in a very child-friendly format so that people could understand the fundamentals of our God book. We did the same for Conditions of Bath. We did the same for Jesus in India. These workbooks are not a replacement of those books. We still refer to those books for detailed study, but we simplified the language of those books in these workbooks that we accumulated. We hope the children are enjoying this book, and we hope that this is a good summarization of what we have done so far. Jazakallah, and I hope you enjoy these workbooks.
I like about the workbook is that there are fun stories to read in here, like whenever you're bored or something, you don't have anything to do at home, I read this and I have fun.
I find the Tahir Academy Workbook interesting and appealing because it's very helpful in our daily lives because we can infer on what we learned in class on our daily lives. I like the questions and word puzzles as well because they're very helpful and they're very fun.